Hey, this is Preston. By the end of this video, you'll get my full step-by-step playbook for how I generate thousands of leads from my Instagram handle while just spending about 2 hours a week on content. You can see that I was able to generate nearly 12,000 leads to my email list, predominantly through Instagram, and it was all because of this monstrous automation. I'm going to walk you through it step by step in this video so that you'll understand how it works. But you can also jump ahead and get a copy of this template in the link in the description. You can customize it, make it your own. But let's start with the basics, the core principles of this automation. There are 3 key things to remember. The first is that you need to personalize what you give people in your funnel. So most people do this simple automation where they say, comment this, and then I'll send you this resource. And then they just send the link. But what you're doing is you're missing out on a key opportunity to actually get their email and, more importantly, get more information about them in a conversation with them that's fully automated. So that's the beauty of this automation. This leads to the second key principle, which is that some people don't even collect their email. They just send them to a free resource or they send them to a landing page and expect the user to just enter their email. That is where you're introducing too much friction in the process. So I always like to collect their email in exchange for giving them the free resource. And I'm transparent with that. And then once I've done that is when I can initiate the conversation with them and get more intel. And then the third thing is you should be giving more things away for free downstream in your conversation instead of trying to sell them in the DMs. I have seen it work where you can sell products that are, under $20 or under $50, but usually if you try to go above that, that's where I've really struggled. I haven't been able to sell coaching calls or larger programs with this method. And that's honestly because people need to build trust. They need to see more of you in your content. So let me walk you through how this works step by step. Just to show you how you can actually build this yourself, you can just click on new automation, start from scratch. And I like to start from a blank canvas so that you can move things around. But let's just actually jump in here since this is already built and I can explain each step rather quickly. So the first thing is you want to start with a user comments on your post or reel. Now, the key to remember is that it's really important to create what I call a lead magnet map. A lead magnet map is where you have a one-to-one match between the key word that a user will say when responding to your video, as well as a distinct resource that you want to give them. The best lead magnets, I think, are newsletter issues, because then when you send them out via, let's say, your email provider like Kit or Beehive, you then can reuse that resource for your Instagram. So let me walk you through how this works. Inside of my newsletter, on my page. This is something I custom built, by the way, with Claude code. So if you actually want me to show you how I did this myself, so I have full configurability over my landing page, I'm happy to create another video about this. But the key to remember here is that inside of my newsletter, which has a variety of topics, they each have a specific number. 116, 115, 114, etc. So if I were to go to a specific category, you'll see that this unique number is tied to this article alone. This is really important because if you don't have a lead magnet map, then let's say you were to use a keyword like, let's go with framework. If you have framework, the word framework mapped to multiple lead magnets, multiple free resources, then you can't run this automation as effectively. You're not going to be able to select a specific post that then has that keyword and maps to a free resource because it's going to take the latest free resource that you connected them to, which is not ideal. The next thing is then to automatically send this message. Want me to send this particular free resource? Tap below and I'll send over the guide. When you send this over, the key step is this conditional step, okay? What we're doing is we're looking for their email in our database in ManyChat. If we have collected their email, then that means that we don't need to have them go through the rest of this automation because we would have already collected that information about them. It would be redundant, repetitive, and your users will hate that. Instead, just cut to the chase and give them the resource. Right there. And notice here, I use a card asset here. So that way you can insert a particular thumbnail of your free resource. Typically, the image with a thumbnail for your resource is going to drive a much higher click-through rate. So that's what I strongly recommend. Now let's jump to the most popular scenario, which is you don't actually have their email. So you're going to redirect them, if they don't have any of these conditions, to this particular step, which is going to be a data collection field. So you're going to say, what's the best email address for me to send this resource to? You're going to use what's called this data collection field, and the reply type should be email. You'll see that there are a bunch of other fields, and a lot of people think, oh, I need to get their email, their name, their phone, etc. No, you just need to ask them for one thing, the most important thing, because otherwise you're going to lose them downstream. So I like to collect email. Then I also like to adjust the data collection expires in this time frame period, because the default in ManyChat, I believe, is to have it to like 30 minutes. But this means that if 30 minutes pass and the user hasn't provided their email, then this automation will die. So I like to create as long of a time horizon as I can, which is, for me, about 30 days is reasonable. And then if they respond anytime within that 30-day window with their email, then we can push them through the rest of the automation. Of course, if the contact hasn't responded, we'll keep reminding them, but otherwise we'll bump them up to the next step, which is here. This is probably the most important step of the entire automation, which is an action. You'll just click on add action. And when you click on here, you'll see a variety of options for you. Now, if you have an email provider, my recommendation would be to use Kit, but you can also integrate with, I believe, HubSpot and MailChimp as well. You can connect to Kit, and you can use any of these actions, like adding a contact to a form or adding them to an email sequence, adding a tag, getting their data. I typically go with add a contact to the form, and then inside of Kit, I run the automation within Kit, getting them added to a new evergreen email sequence so that they get my emails every week. But you don't need to necessarily go too deep on that. The key is you just want to collect their emails to start, and this is the cleanest way to do that. Then once you do this, you can say, you're in, I'm sending the guide to your email now. Here's the link to. You add a time interval, like 3 seconds, just to delay it to make it seem like you're actually going and fetching the resource. And then you can provide them a link to the free guide. But here's where the magic of this automation lives. This is how you actually make ManyChat a 24/7 sales rep in your DMs. You're going to have ManyChat ask this question, which is, I wanted to ask you, where does my category, my niche, speaking on the spot, matter most to you right now? Is it for interviews, meeting with leadership, presentations, being on camera? I have a bunch of free resources, and I want to send you the right one. This is really important. This is like the waiter analogy of actually taking someone's order. So we're going to collect their reply as a text field, and we're going to save their response to a custom field, which I call question input. This will expire in 12 hours. I typically think 12 hours is good enough because they're pretty hot if they're going to respond to you. So what you'll then do is you're going to trigger another action. This time, this action will be a Claude action. You're going to need to get the Claude API key, which can be found in the Claude console. Just go to platform.claude.com, sign in. You really only need like $5 to get started, and you can cover a lot of ground. I was able to send dozens of messages, spending just literally a cent. So it goes a really long way to use their API, particularly if you use a cheap model like Haiku 4.5 or even Sonnet, I hear is pretty cost efficient. You're just going to get the API key. So if you click on get API key, you'll get a code, which is your key. You would then go back into ManyChat. You would go to settings, then to integrations, and then scroll down to Claude, where you would be able to paste your API key. That's how you connect Claude to ManyChat. So the request that we're going to send via the API is this particular system prompt. So I selected Haiku 4.5, and it says this: you classify one Instagram DM reply from someone who just used a free impromptu speaking practice wheel or free resource, whatever you gave them. Classify where speaking matters most for them in exactly one word. Interviews for these different categories, meetings for these different categories, presentations for these on camera, or general, which is a catch-all. I even say this if and only if they explicitly ask for coaching, a program, a course, a higher ticket service, or to work with me, answer high intent instead. So we are classifying the user's response, which we get as a question input. We turn that into a Claude response, which is a single keyword, which we put as a question output. We map it to a question output. When we click save, what this does is we now have Claude's output and can access it in order to know which resource to give to the user. So when we delay it by about a minute, we go to create another condition field. And you can see there are a staggering amount of conditions here because we're basically going one by one for each condition. If we see that their response maps to, let's say, interviews, then we're going to send them a specific resource that's all about how to master your interviews. And then afterwards, what we'll do is we're going to add a tag to them in our email CRM, which will state, this is the tag. It says comms interested. That's one. And then another tag, it will say interviews interested. So now I'm able to segment my audience based off their primary need in my database. I can send them custom email sequences based off of that particular need. I can send them custom free products down the road via email. It's just a way better way to get to know your users over time. You do the same for the remaining categories. And at the very end, you'll see here, like, if the question contains high intent, I say, I love that you want to go deeper. Here's my free speaking course. I also have this speaking program if you're interested. So I'm not even selling them my main program. I'm just giving them another free resource and mentioning my program just to make them aware of it. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. And if you're interested in learning how to automate creating carousels with Claude, then check out this video right here.